Chosen one, I'm here to tell you a secret. I was given just for you today. It's about to change everything. But you have to listen carefully or you'll miss the biggest blessing of your life. Do not skip this message. This isn't a message for everyone. It was written just for you, for where you are now, for what you've been through, and for something big that's coming up today. There's one word in this message that I want you to think about carefully before we go any further. I'm sorry is the word. That word is not used lightly in the world of the chosen one. Regret isn't the same as regret when you just did something wrong or messed up. You don't have to choose the wrong path. Ignore your calling or give up on what you were building. You are still being called. You've been working toward the right goal. The things you've been making are real. You were meant to be on this path. The chosen one feels regret in a way that no one else does. It's when you're in the right place at the right time and have the right calling, but you realize later that you didn't fully understand what was there for you at that time. It seemed like what came had more to it than you could handle. The special advice, direction, support, and help that was ready for that big moment was given to you on a deeper level than you were ready to fully understand. And getting ready for that moment had to be done in a certain way. A way to get ready for what was about to happen. There was time to get ready for the big event. But this preparation wasn't used because the chosen one didn't know how to use it. That's the regret I want to warn you about. You don't have to feel bad about failing or going the wrong way. It's the regret of the difference between what was planned for you and what you could hold at that moment. What the ready but not quite ready chosen one felt when there was a big moment with too much to take in. Before today, while the door is still open, I'm giving you the preparation. Before that big moment comes and it becomes clear whether you're ready for everything it brings, fill out the blanks with preparing right now. Not because you already know what's going to happen, but because making the decision to get ready, putting yourself in a state to handle what's coming is the first step in actually getting ready. When you take that first step, you open up in a way that doing nothing never does. Type it now before we go on. This message will give you something. It will help you figure out what the word unfolds means and why it was used in this message right now. It will check you out. The 5 clear signs that will let you know how ready you are as today gets closer. It will tell the stories of 2 people who had the same kind of big moment but were not ready for it at all. It will also talk about what those differences meant for what they got. It will also tell you the exact way to prepare that will close the gap in your ability to receive between now and today. Follow me. Everything I'm about to give you was made for this point in your journey. Chosen one. The first word I want you to fully understand is unfolds. That word wasn't just thrown into this message as a casual way to say arrives or happens. It was added to tell us something very specific about what's going to happen. In addition, knowing the exact nature of what happens helps us figure out how to get ready for it all. An event that arrives is something. It comes all at once. It's either clear to you or not. In that one moment, everything it holds is there in that one moment. Getting it is either finished or not finished. But there are no layers in the thing itself. After that, it doesn't show you more of itself. What was there when it got there is still there when you first see it. This is what unfolds. A series of events. It starts with a layer on top. This is the part of what was prepared that can be seen the most. This layer on top is the first one. It's true. It really means something. The chosen one who meets the top layer of what happens today will have an important experience that will make that day stand out. Your spirit will recognize it as the arrival of what you've been waiting for. Snorts, on the other hand, this top layer splits into a second layer that you can't see. The second layer means something different from the first. The first layer is when what was coming became clear and easy to spot. The second layer is very clear. It tells you exactly what to do next. The exact change you need to make for your next call. The specific wisdom that gives a full answer to that question that has been around for a while. There is a difference between having a general idea of where to go and being given exact directions. This difference is in the second layer. The second layer leads to the third layer. The third layer is the most substantial part of what was made. The third layer has content that does more than just tell you things. That changes the way you normally do things from now on. Not just for the next choice, but for the whole next season. It's where the issues you've been putting off are finally solved and the things you've been working toward are finally given to you. If someone is ready for what happens, they get all three layers at the same time. Not over the course of days or weeks. The top layer, the second layer, and the third layer all come at the same time and are held by the ready receiver at the same time. As soon as it arrives, the whole picture of what was planned is available. All of its depth, all of its specifics, and all of its meaning that changes lives. The person who isn't ready for what happens will get the top layer, which is real and important. The second layer, on the other hand, gets through the gap and goes on. What comes out on the other side is only a rough idea of what was in the second layer. It's not every single detail. And the third layer doesn't stand out at all. Through the gap goes what was planned at the deepest level of the unfolding. And the person who isn't ready has a vague feeling that something was in the third layer, but they can't get to what it held. The surface is taken in. The second and third layers aren't getting to the deep level they were meant to reach. They feel regret because they didn't get the depth in that first moment. Please know that every seed you plant in this mission grows into a torch that shines in someone else's darkness. Whether by buying a coffee, making a donation, or becoming a member of our community, does not go to a channel. Your actions are supporting a divine mission to save lost souls. But more than your support, we want your presence. When you head to our community through the link in the description or the pinned comment, you aren't just visiting a site. You are entering a community of like-minded believers. This is a sanctuary where you can post your prayer requests, lift up the burdens of others, and engage in daily discussions with a family that speaks the language of faith. Whether you are joining one of our membership tiers for deeper study, sowing a seed of faith, or simply joining our daily morning prayers, you are helping us build a global altar of worship. Heaven moves through willing voices, but it grows through a community that stands together. Each gift you give acts as living water for those in our community seeking healing and hope. Give and it will be given to you is the promise that sustains our shared mission. I invite you now to step out of the shadows and into this circle of prayer. Come with purpose. Join the conversation and plant your seed in fertile ground. Let's open the heavens together. Release your seed today. Join our community and see what God brings back into your life. Chosen one. I want to help you understand why today was chosen as the day it is. Not just because it's a date or to make a point. Names Today in particular is a preparation guide for people who know how to read it. There is an old pattern in religious texts that says the third day has a special meaning from the beginning to the end. This pattern doesn't just show up once and go away. This word is built into the structure of these texts and it always means the same thing. The work is done on the third day. The day when what began on the first day and grew during the second day finally takes on its full clear form, which is exactly where it was going all along. The story of creation is where this pattern first shows up. The first day's work set up the basic differences between things light from dark, existing from not existing. These are the conditions that make everything else possible. The second day set up and separated the space that would hold the third day's work. After the structure was put in place, the first things that could be seen and touched showed up on the third day. The land came up from the water. The first living things came up from the ground. It was possible to see what was set up on the first day and organized on the second day. By the third day, this pattern keeps going through the whole text without stopping. On the third day, the resurrection took place. This is the most important event in the chosen one's journey. On the first day, the loss was felt right away. Not on the second day when things were getting ready for the time between what looked like the end and the real end. But on the third day, what had been set up and held for the first 2 days took on its full visible form. It took 3 days for Jonah to get to Nineveh. On the third day of the wedding, the first sign that could be seen happened at Cana. On the third day of preparation, the big event at Sai happened that changed a whole group of people. The third day of Esther's fasting led to her meeting with the king, which was the moment that changed everything for her people. The pattern stays the same because it's a basic structure. Getting ready for the third day is linked to the work done on the first 2 days, which proves something. The third day of the week is here. The first day is Sunday. The second day is Monday. It's day 3 now. The third day of the week has the same structural meaning as all the third days that came before it. This is something that can be seen in many old texts. Today the third day brings to a clear end what happened on the first and second days and what the journey of the previous season has been building up to. Today is more than just a date on a calendar for the chosen one who sees it this way. They hear it as the day when everything is finished. When what has been going on finally takes the shape it was always going toward. And they were told to get ready. Not just show up or expect something, but to get ready because you get to the big moment when you're there and ready for something. You are ready to receive at the deep level that the moment holds. When you are ready for it. The time to get ready is on Sunday and Monday, the first and second days. What you do during this time of getting ready will determine that the type of receiver you are on the third day, chosen one. The regret I talked about at the start of this message is structured in a certain way. Now, I want to carefully go over that structure so you know what you're being warned against and what this preparation stops. To begin, let me be clear. The chosen person who feels this regret did not fail. The chosen person doesn't feel regret when they fail. Don't feel bad about going the wrong way. Not the sadness of someone who gave up on their path or missed their calling. All of those things make you feel different kinds of regret. That's not what I mean. This is the regret of a chosen one who was in the right place at the right time, who stayed true to their path, whose calling was confirmed and whose direction was right. Who got to the big moment but wasn't ready for the depth of what came that moment. In some ways, this kind of regret hurts more than regretting failing because regretting failing, snorts, has a clear reason. This is what went wrong. But it's not clear why the receiver who was ready but not quite ready feels bad at a big moment. It was all good. The place was right. It was right to be faithful. The calling went through. Even so, the whole picture wasn't sent. There's no clear reason why the full picture didn't land, which makes this regret hurt more. There are three separate parts to this regret. This first part is about the big moment itself. There was an important delivery. What happened on the surface was received and it was real. The person who was chosen felt something, knew something, and was moved by what came to the surface. There really was a meeting. The feeling of nothing coming isn't in the first part. It's the sensation that something is coming, but not fully formed yet. And at that moment you might not know that what you got was not its full depth. The layer on top is important enough that the experience feels whole at the time. In the second part, things slowly become clear. You start to notice that there was more to what happened that didn't quite sink in the days and weeks after the big event. A sense that the direction that came from that meeting is there but not as clear as it should be given. The depth of what came, that the clarity you were hoping for from the whole meeting is there but not all of it. That which should have been clear and doable is there in a general way but not in the exact form that moment should have given it. In the second part, the difference between what came and what was received is slowly seen. The third part is learning about the preparations that were made. Eventually, you realize that the receiver gap wasn't permanent, wasn't a long-term problem, and wasn't something that couldn't have been fixed. Before the big moment, there was a certain amount of preparation going on before the arrival, but it wasn't set in stone because that time wasn't used and the planning wasn't known. That's the third part. And it's this third part that turns normal sadness into the regret I've been talking about. I'm going to explain this structure in great detail so you can understand exactly what you should not do and what will happen if you do decide to use the preparation time. What comes today doesn't change. It changes what the receiver can understand from what comes in. It also ends the third part before the big moment starts it. Chosen one, I need to check your receiver gap before I tell you how to prepare. That's because not everyone coming into today is at the same level of readiness. Some are almost ready to go. Some aren't quite on track. With this checkup, you'll know exactly where your receiver is now and where it should be going. The checkup has 5 signs or specific things that happen to someone whose receiver isn't fully in sync. As a big moment approaches, being honest with yourself is very important as I name each one. Not to put you down, but to help you get to know yourself better so that you can prepare well. The first sign is decision weight due to the knowledge you've gained. Decisions feel heavier than they should when your receiver isn't fully synchronized. Your trip was real. It's their whys. This season has helped you get better at making good decisions. But when you have to make a choice based on all that knowledge, the process feels heavy in a way that doesn't match how well you've prepared. It's not fully connected and flowing between knowing what to do and actually doing it. The decision comes into one part of your mind and needs to be slowly translated into clear, useful guidance. It can't just flow through a system that does the translation automatically and right away. First sign, making decisions that should have made your journey lighter makes you feel heavy. The second sign is prayer friction. If your receiver's synchronization has shifted, you'll find that praying is harder than it should be. Even though your journey has made the connection stronger, there is still a connection. There is still a link to prayer. But I feel like I need to put in more effort to reach the deeper part of that connection that your journey opened up and where your prayer should come from. Without that work, there would be friction where your journey was smooth. The second sign is feeling like you have to push through something that should be open, like you have to reach for depth that should be there right away. Third sign is diminishing returns on consistent inputs. If you're not as ready as you used to be, the same trusted spiritual inputs will not help you as much as they used to. The same things that used to help you a lot aren't helping you as much now. It's not that the materials are bad. They're the same. That which has changed is you, the receiver. If the receiver isn't ready, it doesn't fully understand what the same input means. In the third sign, you're getting less from things that used to give you more. The fourth sign is the background awareness. If your receiver isn't fully in sync, you get a feeling all the time, a sense that something important is there, but that you can't quite grasp it. Like a word that you want to say, but can't. Kind of like a direction that's almost clear but not quite, without becoming really clear. This feeling in the background isn't anxiety. Instinctively, you know that something important that you should be able to get to is just out of your reach. The fourth sign is that feeling that something is close but not quite there. The fifth sign is the execution gap. If your receiver isn't fully in sync, there will be a time when you know what your journey is leading you to and when you actually start moving in that direction. This is not a lack of will, not a lack of faith. The will to do it is there. There is faith. But the step from knowing to doing is more difficult than your journey should have made it. When you know something and then start moving toward it, you lose momentum. It takes extra work to make what should be an easy natural connection. It took longer for you to prepare than it should have for the execution gap. There isn't a smooth connection between knowing and doing when you are fully prepared. There is a diagnosis if 3 or more of these 5 signs are present and you are sure you know what they are. Not all 5 and not very bad versions of each. If you hear 3 or more at any level that you can tell, it means that your receiver is no longer in sync with the level of readiness that today's events will need. If 3 or more of these signs are present, you have to do this preparation. It's the exact treatment for the exact problem that the checkup found. What's going to happen today was made for someone who is ready. The receiver who isn't ready will get the top layer. All 3 layers will be sent to the ready receiver. You know where you stand after the checkup. Being ready for what's coming gets you where you need to be. I'd like to tell you about a man named Marcus. He was a chosen one who had been getting ready for almost a year in peace. Not a big or flashy plan. Not the kind with clear signs and progress, a quiet preparation. The kind where the work being done on you isn't obvious and is done by building up days of faithful ordinary living. This quiet work of getting ready had been making something real. Marcus made this clear when he talked about it last night. The preparation was real. He was getting ready for something. He felt like a big moment was coming up when all of his hard work would pay off in a clear and direct way, and he felt good about himself in the days before that event. He had been honest. He had done everything he knew how to do to get ready spiritually. Prayer happened every day. He was always interacting with the things that were shaping him. He planned to be ready for what was going to happen. He didn't know about the gap between QBS. He didn't know that the constant demands of a long preparation season and the weight of faithfully navigating an uncertain and difficult process of affairs for a year are exactly what make the connections between different parts of your mind lose their strength. He had done all the parts of getting ready that he knew about. He hadn't taken care of the part he didn't know about yet. The big moment came and it was real. Marcus made this point very clear. Something important showed up. He knew what it was. He went through it. There was a real meeting that was very important. He knew it was time for the big moment, but something wasn't like what he thought it would be. The meeting did lead in a certain direction, but it wasn't as clear as the depth of what it should have led to. He was hoping for the kind of clarity that makes it clear what to do next. The kind of knowing that solves the unknown and makes it clear what to do next. He got direction, but it wasn't exact instructions. What he called it later was a general sense of direction. It was clear what he needed to do next, but he didn't have the exact changes for the next step or the wisdom to make the decisions that moment was meant to solve. It was there in general, but not in a way that would have made the next steps clear without any extra work. He did what was told him to do. Even though he knew what he did was real and going in the right direction, he also knew that what had come through had more specific details than what had actually come through. It seemed like the second layer, which contained the specific instructions, hadn't been as clear as the first layer when it arrived. After a few months, Marcus found this way to prepare through events. I won't go into here. He started using it for 8 minutes every day and practicing every day with headphones. With this method, the connection in his receiver started to get better. And then something strange happened that he explained very clearly. It started to become clear to him that the content from the big moment he had experienced months before had been missing from his first reception. Not brand new content coming from a different source. Everything from the same big moment. There was content that had come months ago but hadn't been fully received because of the translation gap. It started to come together in a way that could be used. The specific instructions that were in the second layer of what was sent at that time started to become clear. The direction that had been there in a broad sense started to become more specific, like the first person who came had been. He said it was like waiting for a translation of a letter that came in whole. But the second and third pages were in a format that the reader couldn't fully understand at the time. There was everything in the letter that was sent. The receiver wasn't fully able to understand at the time of the first delivery. The second and third pages could be read months later after daily practice helped them understand again. That content had been there the whole time. At the time of the first delivery, they weren't able to fully understand it. His explanation of what I call the third chamber experience was very clear. As the restoration went on and full forms of the content from the original big moment started to show up, it became clear that the preparation had been there before the big moment. That if his receiver had been fully ready at that very moment, he would have been able to understand what was coming right away. That the second and third pages would have been readable at the time of delivery and that the specific instructions would have been available from the start. But they weren't because there wasn't enough time to get ready before the big event. Seeing the third chamber was the most powerful motivation he had ever seen for the kind of preparation I'm leading you toward. Not after the big moment when the gap has already cost its price, but first during the time that is available now. That time is now. Marcus is standing on the other side of his third chamber and telling you to use it. As this awakening grows inside you, know that helping with this mission is not a joke. It is a sign from God. You can support this work through the link in the description or the pinned comment. Whether by buying a coffee, making a donation, or becoming a member of our Ko-Fi community. By doing so, you become part of Jesus' plan to save souls who are still stuck in fog. Every seed turns into light that fights against darkness. If you water others, you will be watered yourself. Jesus says this is not history. It is a living promise about your future. Come into this moment with faith and a plan. What God has already planned for your life can be unlocked through your giving. Dear Chosen One, I need to give you a scientific reason for what I'm about to say because the way I'm pointing you is not magical. It works in a certain tested way. And knowing this way helps you understand what the preparation does and why it gives the results. I've talked about the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine was given to Dr. Roger Sperry in 1981 for his research into what changes in how people think and process information when their left and right sides of the brain are working together and when they are not. What we found out wasn't just a small change to what we already knew. Scientists now have a much better idea of how the brain gets information, processes it, and understands it. The discovery was that the brain has two sides that are meant to work together in a certain steady and coordinated way. The right side of the brain is for seeing things as a whole, finding patterns, getting the big picture, and combining spiritual, emotional, and intuitive information. It's for getting a sense of how everything fits together and holds more than just the visible parts. Snorts. You can break things down step by step on the left side. The critical examination of what was sent, the writing down of what was added, and the transformation of the whole picture into something that can be used. The two sides are meant to work together all the time in sync so that what the right side receives in its entirety can be translated into a useful actionable form by the left side right away. When everything is in sync, both receiving and translating happen at the same time. In the left side, what is full depth in the right side comes out as full depth practical clarity. There is no break in the translation. The human receiver is meant to be this way. This is how the receiver looks when it's all set up. A lot of follow-up clinical research built on what Dr. Sperry's research showed about what happens to this synchronization when there are a lot of demands on it during a long season of preparation. The constant mental and emotional weight as well as the constant work over a long period of time without enough rest for the synchronization mechanism. These make it predictable for the channel of communication between the brain's hemispheres to get smaller. These changes don't hurt either side. The right side keeps getting hits. The left side makes more progress. But there is less of a link between them because the connection is weaker. The full depth of what comes in from the right side doesn't move to the left side with the same depth. When you translate something, what you get on the right side gets shrunk down on the left side. There were some changes made to the second and third layers of what came in during the translation across the smaller connection. This is how the receiver gap works in particular. A spiritual gap, a lack of calling or a weakening of the spiritual connection is not what the receiver gap is. There is a hole in the brain, a weakening of the connection between brain cells that makes it harder for spiritual information to be translated into everyday understanding. There isn't less spiritual reception. The translation is cut down. This is also why the method for preparation works. The clinical work that followed Dr. Sperry's research showed that synchronization can be restored by using certain sound patterns that work both sides of the brain. At the same time, there are certain frequencies and timing patterns that directly turn on the synchronization pathway and get the left-right hemispheres back to working together the way they were meant to. The connection that is too narrow can be made wider. It is possible to close the translation gap. It is possible to fix the receiver gap before a big arrival, not after it. A neurologist in New York City named Dr. Daniel Barron built his practice on this basic research. The clinical method that Dr. Barron and his team came up with always got the same results. Synchronization could be brought back. It is possible to fix the receiver gap. The plan worked. Long clinical sessions, an hour or more, in a controlled clinic, were hard to get for people who are getting ready and need to rest but can't get to long clinical sessions outside of a clinic. Dr. Barron worked on compressing it for 10 years. How much of the clinical effectiveness could be kept while the session length was cut down to a level that could be used every day? It took years of working on the answer to get it right. They made the frequency patterns better. They were able to pinpoint the exact parts of the protocol that made the synchronization connection better per unit of time. After 10 years, they got to an 8-minute sequence, 8 minutes a day that restores the synchronized state in a meaningful way. Enough of an improvement to let the second layer through that a drifted receiver would not be able to reach enough to change today. The exact preparations for the exact arrival. I'd like to tell you about a woman I'll call Sarah. She was meant to lead a group of people for a long time because that was her calling. Dr. Sperry's research showed that synchronization narrowing was most likely to happen in situations where people had to work hard for a long time, were responsible for other people, and had to navigate the complicated world of a growing community. This had all happened because of the nature of the calling. She still did what she was supposed to do. Things looked like they were going well from the outside. The work was getting done. The people she worked for were getting what they needed in every way that could be seen. Her calling was being met. But from the inside, it was clear that the diagnosis I gave you was true. It was easy to make a choice. She was trained to make decisions with good judgment. But the ones she had to make were harder than they should have been. The trouble with prayer was there. It was taking more work than it should to get to the deep connection that her training had made possible. Being aware of the background was there. That constant sense that something important is close but not quite there. And there was a gap in service. The gap between what she knew and what she did was bigger than her training had made it. She wasn't having a crisis. She was going nowhere. The slow narrowing that happens during a long, hard season. The person who is drifting often doesn't know they are drifting until they have a reference point that shows them what it feels like to be undrifted. She found the restoration protocol that Dr. Barron and his team had made and started practicing it every day for 8 minutes with headphones on and her eyes closed. In the first 3 days, she felt what she called a warmth in her internal processing. It wasn't a big change. Just a warmth and a sense of ease that hadn't been there in a while. It wasn't as rough in her prayer channel. The first thing she did in the morning, which was processing, felt less like work and more like the easy engagement that her training had made her capable of. She was able to name a change by the end of the first week. The link between how you feel and what you say was fixed. Her right brain was picking up something, a feeling, an impression, or a direction, and her left brain was putting it into words in a way that it hadn't been able to do in a while. There was less space between intuitively knowing something and actually naming that knowing. There was a gap that had been creating the background awareness, the sense that something was there, but not quite clear. It was closing. The gap between executions had shrunk a lot by the second week. She first noticed it in the small decisions she had been putting off because they were hard. The decisions were made not by putting in more work, but by making the process less bumpy. It had been a long time since knowing and moving toward knowing were so close to each other. Then at the end of the second week of the restoration practice, something important showed up in her calling. Something that had been building up in the way of her calling showed up at that point in the restoration work. She got it. Also, please pay close attention to what she said about the reception. She said that the arrival could be received at the same time by 3 layers. When the surface layer got there, it was clean and full. Then the second layer, which had only slowly shown up after major arrivals in the past after days or weeks of extra processing, was there at the time of the original reception and could be accessed right away without having to go through the extra days of work that had been needed to get it from the first layer. The third level, which held specific guidance for the next part of the calling, could also be reached at the time of the initial arrival, though not as an overall impression, but in its exact form. She said that the restored receiver and the drifted receiver were not different enough to tell the difference between a small improvement and a bigger one. It meant the difference between receiving one layer at a time with only a hint of what was deeper and receiving all 3 layers at once with full access to all of them. When you know that something important has arrived, but don't know exactly what it is, that's the difference between having a general sense of direction and clear instructions. That's the difference the preparation window makes, which is a big plus. This is what makes the difference between partially and fully receiving what unfolds. And it all starts with using a certain preparation method in the days before what unfolds. I'm going to tell you in great detail about what Sarah used. So listen up. The clinical restoration protocol was made by Dr. Daniel Barron and his team in New York based on Dr. Sperry's research. The clinical outcomes were always the same. By specifically activating the synchronization pathway through sound, synchronization could be restored. The translation depth between the hemispheres got better when certain frequencies and timing patterns were used to activate both hemispheres at the same time and guide them back to the coordinated operation. They were designed to keep up. The problem was getting to it. The required clinical sessions were long, an hour or more in a controlled clinical setting, and hard to get to for someone who is still getting ready and needs to recover but can't make it to long clinical sessions. The compression work took 10 years for Drive Barron and his team to finish. The specific question was how much of the clinical effectiveness could be kept while the session length was cut down to a level that could be used every day outside of a clinical setting. It took years of working on the answer to come up with it. They made changes to the timing architecture and frequency patterns and figured out which parts of the protocol made the biggest difference in the amount of time that could be used for synchronization. 10 years of work to make it better led them to an 8-minute daily sequence that they did with their eyes closed and headphones on. This is the exact frequency and timing sequence that works both sides of the brain at the same time and guides them toward their natural state of coordinated synchronized operation. The genius switch is what Dr. Barron and his team call it. It works the way that Dr. Sperry's research showed it could. The synchronization pathway is directly activated by certain sound frequencies. Both sides of the brain are working at the same time. Not one after the other. They are guided into the coordinated process that lets the translation channel work at its best. It starts to work after the first session. In the first session, people start to work with the pathway. It gets stronger in the second, third, and fourth sessions. Every session builds on the ones before it. In its fourth daily session in a row, the receiver is in a much higher state of synchronization than it was in the first session. There is enough time to get ready between now and today for the practice to make a real difference. In the receiver synchronization state, 3 to 5 sessions a day for a few weeks make the specific improvement in translation skills that determines whether the second and third layers of what happens can be seen. That's the getting ready. That's the difference between having a general idea of where to go and being given clear instructions. So that's what you can get starting today. The Genius Switch is more than just the 8-minute core work. 4 extra resources were added by Dr. Barron and his team at no extra cost to the whole system. The first extra resource is a guided visualization that is made to get the receiver ready for restoring synchronization. The receiver that has a clear picture in their mind of what the restored state will do is already moving toward it. The visualization sets up the neural pathway which is then used by the core sequence. The protocol that comes next works faster on the prepared pathway. The second extra resource is a useful list of the foods that are most often linked to brain fog and trouble coordinating your movements. according to the research that Dr. Barron and his team use. There are 10 types of foods that consistently show up in people who are having the most problems with synchronization drift. They also find other foods that help with the clarity that synchronization restoration brings. What your receiver is built on affects its state of synchronization. The foundation part is covered in the dietary guide. The third extra resource is an important book on having an abundance mindset. Getting into a mindset of abundance before it happens helps the chosen one who is getting ready to receive what happens today. When something comes in at full depth, it is best received by someone who already has their hands open. The abundance text talks about the part of receiver preparation that has to do with attitude. The fourth extra resource is a printable guide to 5 daily habits that make and keep the best conditions for restoring synchronization to start happening and last. Not hard to understand methods, some changes you can make to your daily routine that will help you get back in sync instead of getting in the way. There are no strings attached to the guarantee that comes with the whole system. If the genius switch doesn't make the receiver better in the way I described, you get your money back in full. That promise is very thorough, which shows that Dr. Barron and his team are sure about what they made. There is no financial risk in using the time for preparation. You can't put a dollar amount on the possible cost of not using it. It can only be judged by what the full expression of what happens today would have led to on the path of your calling that comes next today. The whole system usually costs $49. An extra ponton is saved on the page that Dr. Barron and his team make available through the link below this message and in the comment that was pinned above Form 39 for the whole system for getting ready. You can go straight to the page from the link, read it, and start getting ready right away. Chosen one, I want to talk straight to you about the urge to avoid this because some of you will be feeling it right now in this message. And the way it is right now. When it comes to the preparation method doesn't prove that the preparation is wrong, it shows that it's true. When you're closest to the thing that could fix what your journey hasn't been able to fix with its other tools, the urge to avoid it is strongest. It feels like a reasonable amount of safety. There are good questions that come up because of it. I'm going to answer the 3 most common ones right away. The first question is whether there is enough time to get ready. What will happen and whether the days between now and today are enough for the method to make a real difference in how well things are sensed. The answer is unique to that method. It doesn't take long for the genius switch to start making the big difference. Snorts, the method uses the synchronization pathway right away in the first session. 3 to 5 days of daily use makes a noticeable difference in the part of synchronization that determines how deep the translation is. However, it does not fully restore after a long drift. But it was a big improvement. Enough to let the second layer through that the drifted receiver wouldn't have been able to. Enough to tell the difference between having a general idea of where to go and being given clear instructions. The time between now and today is long enough to make that difference. The second question is whether 39 is worth it for a preparation that needs to be done by a certain date. Look at how much the preparation cost and how much the third chamber cost. The chosen one who comes today with a receiver that has been jumbled and only receives the top layer of what was planned for them. When they were fully prepared, goes through the third chamber, realizing that the whole picture was there, that the tools were there, that the window was there, and that it was closed. That third chamber experience along the whole path of your call costs more than the 39. And the guarantee means that you can get your money back if the preparation doesn't work as promised. There is no financial risk in using the time for preparation. The third question is whether the way I'm telling you to prepare your brain is the right way to prepare for a spiritual big moment. whether it is the right way to get ready for what will happen. The spiritual preparation and the receiver preparation are not going up against each other. Prayer takes care of the spiritual link. The restoration plan takes care of the neurological part of the ability to translate. A receiver that has been taught to both ways is fully prepared. The spiritual part of your journey is being prepared for by your prayer life and active participation in it. Restoration work adds the neurological part that spiritual preparation alone doesn't directly deal with. Together they make the receiver that sees all three levels of what happens. The avoidance signal makes you think about things that make you feel like you need to think more. The stories of those who let these questions cause them to be late all have one thing in common. The delay was how their time to get ready for the big moment ran out. Not because they didn't want to, but because there was still a question. There was a delay. I've replied to the questions. The choice is now. Picked one. Let me paint a picture of how today will look when you're ready. Imagine getting it, but not the specifics of what happens or how it gets to you in your specific situation and calling. What matters is the experience of getting it all in through a ready receiver. The first layer shows up. It's whole and clear. The recognition happens right away. The receiver can easily hold the surface of what unfolds without feeling like the container is struggling under the weight of what came. The receiver doesn't have to deal with the overwhelming feeling that comes when something meant for a full receiver reaches a reduced receiver. The first layer can be fully retracted and held in place. Also, the first layer gives way to the second layer. Right when it first comes in, not slowly over the next few days. The second layer comes up from behind the first like a translation that was done before the first layer got there in full. At that very moment, the specificity of the second layer is there, the exact way to go, the change that needs to be made for the next step or the specific piece of wisdom that solves a problem that has been bothering you for a while. Everything is there in the first place because the synchronized receiver holds and translates at the same time. Not one after the other, but both receiving and translating are going on at the same time. The second layer leads to the third layer, which is the deepest part of what was planned. It contains the most specific and life-changing information. The resolution of what wasn't resolved during the previous season. The release of what your journey has been building you up to receiving and the specific naming of what your journey has been building you up to. The ready receiver gets the third layer at the same time it arrived the first time. All three layers at the same time. The full picture of what was planned comes through and is understood at the level of detail that it was planned at. There is no filtering by the translation gap because it is not open. It's full on the connection in sync with what the arrival needs. Everything is ready. Not only does this full reception feel like something important arrived, but it also takes a specific form. But the exact direction, wisdom, adjustment, and confirmation that the arrival brought are already in your practical understanding right now. You don't have to put in days of extra work like a partially prepared receiver does to get what a fully prepared receiver gets at the moment of arrival. For the ready receiver, the morning after today is different. It is easy to see the direction because today's full depth landed in a receiver that could hold it all. That's the picture. That's what the preparation makes happen. That's the difference between today for the receiver who is ready and today for the receiver who is not ready. The difference starts with the choice made today before today even comes to use the window that is open to use the specific method that closes the receiver gap before today comes. The genius switch costs you $39 and has 8 minutes of daily work. For extra resources that don't cost anything extra and a guarantee that says you can get your money back. If the preparation doesn't work the way I said it would, you can find the link in the description below this message. And in the comment that was pinned above the page that Dr. Barron and his team made. Read it. Listen to the full report of what the research found and what the 1,800 people who have already done this preparation have to say. Then make your choice today. Start today before the window shuts. You can type preparing in the comments to make it clear that you saw the window, understood the preparation, and chose to use the window that your receiver is getting ready for what's going to happen today in all its depth. The third chamber is not the way to get there. That the full reception is what we sign over your life because your receiver will be ready in the days before today. Over the second and third levels, what unfolds being able to be received at the moment of the first arrival over the full expression of what was planned for the fully ready version of you to arrive at the level it was planned for. The time for getting ready is open. You can use the method. The choice is now. Make use of the window. Let's start getting ready. What you bring to today is what it gets. That's how it is. You are about to enter your divine future. But remember, this breakthrough is not for you alone. Your testimony is the bridge someone else will use to reach their own miracle. Archangel Michael is inviting you to visit community through the link in the description or the pinned comment. Whether by buying a coffee, making a donation, or becoming a member of our community does not go to a channel. Your actions are supporting a divine mission to save lost souls. By joining our like-minded community, you are no longer praying in isolation. You are adding your voice to a global sanctuary where we discuss the Word daily and stand in the gap for one another. This is not poetry. When Jesus says, "Give and heaven will open over you." On this platform, every seed you plant turns into oil for your destiny, fire for your calling, and a hedge of safety for your family. Now is your time. Step into our community prayer wall. Share your heart, and as you give, watch God multiply what you let go of. Let's finish this journey together. Visit our community now. Join the family and see your heavens open. Before we get to the end of this powerful story, let's reflect on this deep truth. You did not find this message by accident. This is a divine appointment meant specifically for you. You are being invited into a protected faith-filled community at the link in the description and pinned comment. A place where divine abundance is not just a hope but a promise built on the Word. By heading to the site right now, you are unlocking access to a sacred community of like-minded believers. When you join our membership tiers, you gain immediate entry to powerful content, daily devotions, and divine insights that are hidden from the world. This is your chance to enter a sanctuary where you will receive spiritual guidance, unwavering support on our prayer wall, and speedy progress toward your destiny. Do not let this moment of destiny pass you by. Your breakthrough is waiting. Join our inner circle through the exclusive link in the description. This is how you guarantee you never miss the personalized messages and spiritual warfare tools meant to elevate your life. Snorts, if you feel called to deepen your connection, the link is waiting for you in both the pinned comment and the description. For those who want to amplify this work and carry the light home, you can find our guided ebooks, snorts, and Bibles in the pinned comment. Whether you join as a member or sow a seed through our resources, your presence and energy change the world. Take the step. Your breakthrough awaits.